My parents forged my signature and sold my Mustang behind my back to fund my brother's mental health retreat. So I got the law involved and now they are calling me nonstop. What's up, everyone? I didn't think I'd be posting this, but I need to vent. Buckle up because my family just pulled the dumbest, most entitled move I've ever seen in my entire life. So I've, 26 male, always been the invisible son. Since the day my younger brother Chase, 22 male, was born, it's like I stopped existing unless they needed a favor. And from the time he could walk, my parents treated him like he was the crown prince, and I was just the dude who lives here too. If I got a B+, it was, why didn't you study harder? If Chase got a C-, they'd clap like he won a Nobel Prize. I remember one time in high school, I worked my butt off doing lawn care every weekend to save for a used laptop. Chase? He said he wanted one, and 2 days later, he had a brand new MacBook for school. So here's how it all went sideways. I used to be the proud owner of a fully paid off 2018 Ford Mustang GT. Keyword, used to. Now, it's gone. Sold behind my back by my own parents. And no, this isn't some legal gray area or well technically kind of situation. Title? In my name. Insurance? My name. Every dime put into that car came out of my own pocket. I bought it straight up 2 years ago after saving from working full-time and doing freelance gigs on the side. Not a single payment came from my family. Not one. I was heading out of town for a 3-day business trip. Nothing major, just a conference and some client meetings. Before I left, Chase asked if he could borrow my car for the weekend. Said he wanted to go see his girlfriend a couple towns over. Now, Chase is still living at home with our parents. He's always been a bit soft, not in a terrible way, but the kid has zero idea what it means to handle life on his own. Failed out of 2 colleges already, and is on thin ice at his 3rd. But mom and dad act like he's secretly Einstein with anxiety. Anyway, I didn't think much of it. I was flying and told him he could use the Mustang, just to be careful with. I even said, don't do anything stupid. I'm trusting you with it. Which in hindsight was a hilarious sentence because this guy probably thinks filling the gas tank is a personality trait. Fast forward 3 days. I land, grab an Uber home, and there's no car in the driveway. Not at my place, not at my parents'. I call Chase. No answer. I text. Nothing. I call again. This time my mom picks up and starts talking to me like she's trying to return a microwave to Costco. Oh, Darren, we sold the Mustang. Chase needed a mental health reset, and we couldn't afford the retreat, so we used the car. I thought I misheard her. Like maybe she meant something else? Nope. They actually sold my car, to pay for some overpriced wellness retreat because Golden Boy was feeling stressed. I asked how they could even sell it when the title's in my name. You know what she said? Well, it was in the family and Chase had permission to use it, so we figured it was okay. Nah, no part of that is okay. That's not how anything works. If I lend you my phone and you trade it in for store credit, we're not having a disagreement, we're having a robbery. At this point, I'm yelling into the phone like a maniac, and my dad takes over the call. Says it was a necessary decision, and that I should be more understanding of Chase's mental state. Dude sounded like he was reading from a brochure. I asked where the money went exactly. Turns out they paid some company $9,000 for a 4-day rejuvenation retreat in the mountains, with a sauna, and a private chef. I'm sorry, but what kind of recovery does Chase need that involves gourmet pancakes and Himalayan salt lamps? I hung up on them, jumped in my friend's car, and drove straight to my parents' place. I didn't even plan what I was gonna say. I was running on rage and disbelief at that point. I pulled up, walked straight to the door, and knocked like the cops. My dad opened it, acting like I was some door-to-door salesman. We need to talk, I said, already walking past him into the living room. They were both sitting there, calm like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just stolen and sold something that wasn't theirs. Who did you sell my Mustang to? I asked, arms crossed. My mom looked at my dad like she expected him to handle it. He gave me this smug look and said, it was a private sale. I blinked. Okay, and? That's confidential, he said, like he was protecting state secrets and not covering up grand theft. Confidential? I repeated, laughing dryly. You sold my car, and now you're acting like it's none of my business? You left the car with Chase, he said, shrugging. That's called abandonment. Abandonment? I said, stunned. I went on a 3-day business trip. He borrowed it. I told him I'd be back and needed the car after. Are you serious right now? My mom finally jumped in, arms folded, like she was scolding a kid. We just figured it was time to make a choice for the good of the family. Chase needed help. So you robbed me? I asked. That's your big choice for the family? We thought you'd understand, she said, in that tone she uses when she's trying to guilt someone into shutting up. Understand what? I said. That you two committed fraud, forged legal documents, and dumped my property for cash like it was sitting in a lost and found box? You're being dramatic, my dad said again. No, I snapped. You're being criminals. They went quiet after that. Not sorry, just quiet. Like they'd realized I wasn't bluffing anymore and there was nothing left they could say to flip it back on me. At that point, I left before I did something I'd regret. Got back home and gathered every single document I had. Title, registration, insurance, even the email confirmation from when I transferred the title to my name. Everything. I marched over to the police department to report my car as stolen. This is where it got even more frustrating. The officer I talked to, let's call him Officer Shoulder Shrug, literally told me it sounded like a family misunderstanding, and that I should try resolving it with them first before getting legal involved. I explained slowly, like I was talking to someone's stubborn grandpa, that this wasn't a fight about who gets the last cookie. This was straight up theft. They sold a car they didn't own. Do you have proof? He asked. Buddy? Yes. I had more paperwork than the DMV itself, but he just kept circling back to maybe talk to your parents again. So I left, fuming. Car gone. Cops not taking it seriously. Parents acting like I donated it. I didn't even know where to start next, but I wasn't done. Because if they thought this was over, they were about to find out what happens when you mess with someone who kept every receipt. I hit up an attorney. I found this guy, Eric, through a coworker who said he was good at ugly family crap. That sounded like the right genre, so I booked a consult. Showed up with a folder full of documents and a timeline typed out like I was prepping for a school project. Told Eric the whole situation. I own the Mustang. My parents and brother sold it without telling me, and I had solid proof the title was mine. First thing he asked was if I had a copy of the signed title transfer. I did. The DMV gave me a PDF when I finalized the ownership. He looked at it and then asked if I'd seen the paperwork from the sale. That's when I realized how stupid this whole thing really was, because I hadn't even thought to check if they forged my signature. I went back to my parents' place later that evening, under the excuse of trying to talk things through, which, by the way, I had no intention of actually doing. I asked my dad if I could see the paperwork from the sale. He looked at me like I asked for their tax returns. After some arguing, he eventually pulled up an email on his phone with a scan of the sale form. Guys, my name was on it. My signature too. Except it wasn't mine. It looked like someone tried to copy my name from memory and gave up halfway through. The slant was wrong, the spacing was off, and it had this weird swoop at the end like a third grader trying to sign a birthday card. I kept a straight face, told them I'd think about everything, then walked out. Sent the image straight to Eric. He replied within an hour. They forged your signature. This is criminal. That was the first time in this whole mess I felt like I wasn't just yelling into a void. Within the next few days, we filed a police report again, this time including the forged document. We also sent notice to the DMV and the buyer through certified mail. That kicked things into high gear real fast. Suddenly, this wasn't a family spat anymore. It was fraud. Real, prosecutable, felony-level fraud. The cops got involved again, but now with actual interest. A detective showed up to ask questions, and for once, someone was listening. I gave him the full timeline, handed over the original title documents, screenshots of text messages where my mom admitted to selling the car, and the forged title image. My brother even texted me, "Sorry things got out of hand. I didn't think they'd go this far," which was just another dumb thing to say in writing. But thanks, Chase. Very helpful. Meanwhile, Eric filed a civil suit for damages. He told me the buyer could technically be forced to return the car since the sale was invalid. But here's where it got complicated. The buyer refused. He claimed he bought the car in good faith and didn't know it was stolen. I get it to an extent. You think you bought a legit car from a legit family, but when someone shows up with court documents and proof the title was forged, you'd think that'd be enough to get the car back. Nope. This guy said, "Take it up with them. I'm not getting involved." Cool attitude. Definitely makes me want to send you a thank you card. So now it became a two-lane battle. Criminal charges against my parents and civil pressure on the buyer to return my car. You know what my parents did while all this was happening? Acted like I was the traitor in some family war they started. They completely ignored the part where they committed fraud, sold my car, and lied to everyone. In their minds, I was the villain for not just understanding. My mom called me one night, full crying mode already turned on. I hadn't even said hello before she launched into it. "I just don't understand how you could do this to us," she sniffled. "Chase is struggling emotionally. He needed help. We were trying to support him. This legal stuff, Darren. It's tearing the family apart." I sat there, phone on speaker, just staring at the ceiling. "You forged my name and sold my property," I said flatly. "What part of that is supporting anyone but your favorite child?" "We didn't know what else to do," she said. voice cracking like it was my fault her plan backfired. We thought you'd be reasonable. Oh yeah, totally reasonable, I said. Let's commit a felony and hope Darren's chill about it. She actually gasped. This wasn't a felony, Darren. It was a family decision. For Chase. He needed help. I sat up. Then sell your own car, Mom. Silence. Then my dad got on the line. Same old tired tone, like I was a disappointment for not letting him walk all over me. You're being vindictive, he said, straight up. Dragging the family through court? Over a vehicle? I laughed. Couldn't help it. It's not about the car anymore. It's about the fact that I can't trust the two people who raised me not to stab me in the back the second they need something. Don't be dramatic, he snapped. Oh, sorry, I said. I'll tone it down next time you commit fraud. He hung up. Mom tried to keep crying, but I ended the call before she could launch into the next performance. They even had the nerve to ask me to pause everything until Chase got back from his retreat. Like I was supposed to let all the legal stuff sit on a shelf until he returned from whatever overpriced cabin he was using to find himself. Honestly, it felt kind of good to finally be the one pushing back. For once, I wasn't just the guy who kept quiet to keep the peace. I wasn't the backup plan or the walking bank account they thought they could manipulate. I was mad, I was armed with receipts, and now I had a lawyer in my corner who knew exactly what buttons to press. So remember how the first officer I talked to brushed the whole thing off like it was some squabble over who ate the last Pop-Tart? Well, once the forgery part kicked in, suddenly the badge brigade decided they might have missed something important. The detective, we'll call him Detective Mason, called me to say he'd reviewed everything. The forged signature, the emails, the texts, even the DMV docs. He sounded way too calm, but he ended the call with, yeah, they really messed up here. No fake sympathy, just straight up facts. Within a few days, Mason paid my parents a visit. I didn't go, obviously. I wasn't trying to stand in their driveway while they gaslit me again about how it was just a family decision. Mason told me later that my dad was smug at first, like he thought being a dad gave him diplomatic immunity. He tried saying, I gave them the car to sell. Meanwhile, my mom apparently went with the, we were helping our son Chase in a time of crisis defense. Didn't work. Mason asked about the title. My mom said it was in her name. Mason pulled out a copy with my name on it. Silence. Then came the big question. How did they sell a car they didn't own? That's when they started tripping over each other. First it was, we didn't know. Then it turned into, we thought Darren would be okay with it. Mason asked them who signed the bill of sale. My dad said, Darren did. Mason asked if they had that signature. They gave him the exact same janky signature scan I had already turned in. Mason told me afterward it was like watching a slow-motion car crash. Every time they spoke, they dug a little deeper. When they finally realized this wasn't going to be brushed under the rug, my mom started crying. Classic move. Worked on every teacher and neighbor growing up. Too bad detectives aren't as gullible. Meanwhile, the buyer was still acting like he was allergic to responsibility. He kept telling my lawyer he wasn't getting involved in family stuff, and that he bought it fair. We sent him official notice that the title was invalid, and legally, he was now in possession of stolen property. He ignored it. That's when Eric filed for a temporary restraining order on the car. It basically froze any ability to resell it or even drive it without risking seizure. The dude tried to act like this was some misunderstanding, but we knew he'd been dodging calls and pretending not to be home when officers came by. That's not what someone with clean hands does. Eventually, Mason called me up again. They finally admitted the signature was forged. He said, your mom said she did it because she thought you'd understand, once Chase got the help he needed. Help he needed? Chase wasn't in crisis. The guy just didn't want to take responsibility for blowing off classes and flunking his midterms. This wasn't about mental health. It was about mommy and daddy saving face for their baby, who never grew up. I asked what happens next. Mason said charges were being prepared. Fraud, theft by deception, and forgery. They were officially under investigation. That hit different. These weren't warnings or stern talks. This was criminal court stuff. This was fingerprints and records. What really hit me, though, was how none of them even tried to apologize. No, we messed up. No, can we talk? Just radio silence or worse, guilt-tripping messages. My dad sent me a text that literally said, you used to be more loyal to your family. Money changed you. Nah, dude. Getting robbed changed me. Filing police reports changed me. Watching you fake my signature for your failure of a favorite son changed me. Even Chase stayed quiet. Not even a text to say sorry. Just straight up ghosted me like I was the one who crashed his car. And through all this, I still didn't have my car back. We were 2 weeks in at that point, and the Mustang was still sitting in some random guy's garage while lawyers argued over technicalities. I was Ubering to work, borrowing rides, and getting non-stop questions about why I suddenly wasn't driving. I'd just tell people, family issue. Not worth going into unless I felt like ruining someone's lunch break. So after weeks of waiting, I finally got the go-ahead. The court approved our request to recover the Mustang directly. That meant cops could now step in, physically retrieve the car, and deal with the guy who bought it like it was his. I was ready. I even cleared space in the garage like I was preparing for a long-lost pet to come home. Now, about the buyer, this dude had been ducking everything from the jump. Calls, ignored, certified letters, signed for, then silence. Police? He wasn't available. But the more we dug in, the more it felt intentional. He knew exactly what he'd bought, and he didn't want to give it up. When the detective finally tracked him down at his house, he tried the whole "I didn't know" act. Said he had no clue the car was stolen. Even threw in a "the mom said it was fine" line. Like that was some kind of legal protection. The guy had parked the car in his driveway like it was a trophy, even put a stupid bumper sticker on it. Not even kidding. Some cheap joke about workaholics. Mason didn't play around. He told the guy flat out that the title was forged. The real owner, me, had provided full documentation, and if the car wasn't turned over immediately, he'd be looking at criminal charges too. Suddenly, the buyer got real polite, asked if he could make arrangements to return it. No apology, just damage control. That same afternoon, I got a call. They were towing the Mustang back to an impound lot until paperwork was processed. I wasn't allowed to pick it up yet, but it was officially in police custody and out of the buyer's hands. That alone felt like a win. I hadn't even seen the car in almost a month, and part of me kept thinking they'd wrecked it or sold it again under a different name. It was like I couldn't relax until I actually had the keys back in my hand. Eric started working on the paperwork to transfer it back to me. Technically, since it had been retitled, even illegally, it had to go through DMV hoops to reverse it. But since the court ruled the sale invalid and the signature forged, it wasn't as complicated as it could have been. The only real issue was time, and I was beyond done being patient. During all this, my parents finally cracked, probably because they got wind that the buyer was turning over information to protect himself. Suddenly, I'm getting emails from my dad saying things like, "We should have talked it through first, and let's put this behind us." Right. Let's put behind the part where you forged my name and sold my stuff like you were having a garage sale. My mom even tried the whole emotional guilt trip route again. She left a voicemail saying I was tearing the family apart over a car. No mention of the fraud. No mention of lying to the DMV. Just me being the bad guy because I refused to eat dirt and smile about it. Anyway, about a week later, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Car's ready for pickup. I didn't even ask questions. Just drove straight there with every document they could possibly want. When I saw the Mustang sitting there, it felt weird. Like seeing something you loved after it went through something rough. It looked mostly the same, minus some dirt and a mystery stain on the passenger seat. No major damage, thank God. I checked the mileage, and it hadn't been run into the ground, so that was a relief. They handed over the keys. I signed the release. Just like that, I had it back. Finally. The ride home was dead silent. No music, no calls, just me gripping the wheel like I didn't believe it was real. I got back, parked it in my garage, and just stood there staring at it. All this chaos, all the legal junk, the calls, the lies, just to get back something that never should have been taken. You'd think that'd be the end of it. But nah, civil court was still coming up. Eric was already preparing claims for damages, legal fees, emotional distress, cost of alternate transportation, all of it. I wasn't just going to let them walk away from this with a warning. They'd cost me weeks of my life, thousands in legal bills, and any last shred of trust I had for them. Funny part? My dad sent one last message before I blocked him. Said I was being cold and disrespectful. Said Chase wasn't in the right headspace when he took the car and that I should have been more compassionate. Yeah, maybe if they'd asked. Maybe if they hadn't lied, forged, and sold it like I was never coming back. But they did. And now they were facing actual consequences. The Mustang was back where it belonged. They weren't. Chase finally returned from his deluxe mental health retreat. And of course, he was too busy reflecting to get involved. Translation: hiding while everyone else dealt with the mess. Guy hadn't worked a full-time job in his life but had no problem living off a stolen car fund like it was a scholarship. And here's the worst part. He bailed after 4 days. Yeah, 4 days. Apparently it was too intense. And by intense, I mean they made him turn off his phone and join one group discussion a day. That's it. He told one of our cousins he felt trapped and came back early because the vibe was off. The same Chase who once quit a job because clocking in felt oppressive couldn't handle being without Wi-Fi for a week. Incredible. By now, most of the extended family knew something went down. Not the full details, but enough to know things had exploded. My aunt called me to ask why my parents looked so stressed out. I told her the basics. She went dead silent. Then she said, "Honestly, that sounds like something they'd do. So it wasn't just me all these years." Good to know. Back at my parents' house, the drama was just beginning. Cops kept dropping by for statements, serving papers, all that fun stuff. Neighbors noticed. I got texts from a few old friends who still lived in the area asking what the heck was going on. I kept it short. Just some overdue karma. What really sealed it, though, was Chase's reaction. He called me finally. First time in weeks. Not to say sorry. Not to admit anything. Just to say, "Hey, I heard you're suing mom and dad. You're really gonna go through with that?" "Yeah, I am." He started going on about how family is supposed to protect each other, and how this was going to tear things apart. I let him rant for about 2 minutes and then said, "They tore it apart the minute they forged my name and handed you the keys." Then I hung up. Later, I heard he told my parents I was being petty and vindictive. Petty is stealing someone's car and hoping they won't press charges. Holding people accountable? That's called being an adult. Try it sometime, Chase. Eric kept things moving on the legal side. We got a court date set for the civil suit, and the DA was already looking into charges against my parents for forgery and theft. Not just one count either. Turns out trying to fake a legal document and pass it off at the DMV can stack up charges pretty quick when the paper trail is that clear. Even better, the buyer ended up cooperating with law enforcement. After realizing how serious the charges were, he handed over texts, emails, and a full timeline of his interaction with my parents. That included screenshots where my mom told him, "Darren is letting us handle the sale and he's fine with it." So not only did they forge my name, they lied in writing too. It wasn't just a bad decision. It was planned. And that made it a whole different game. By now, my parents had stopped trying to reach me. No more texts, no more fake apologies. Just silence. I think they realized they had no cards left to play. All they'd ever known was manipulation. And when that didn't work, they folded. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel angry anymore. I did. Still do. Not just because they took something that was mine, but because they acted like it wasn't a big deal. Like it was just part of being a family. That mindset? That's how you end up justifying all kinds of garbage. The part that really pissed me off was how they treated Chase through it all. Like some fragile crystal child who couldn't be held accountable for anything. He didn't get blamed, didn't get questioned. He got a retreat, a paid vacation, and protection from every consequence. I got legal bills and a missing car. I kept thinking, if I hadn't lawyered up, if I hadn't pushed back, would they have ever admitted it was wrong? Probably not. And yet, here I was. Car back in my garage, title restored, lawsuit in progress, and them? They were facing charges, looking at fines, maybe even jail time. And Chase? He was still jobless, still floating through life, now with a big ol' mental health retreat on his resume. All that for 4 days in the mountains and a goat yoga session. If karma moves slow, at least it doesn't forget. The day the court papers were officially filed for the civil suit, I changed my phone number. No heads up, no last warning message. Just gone. New number, new email, locked down social media. I wasn't interested in their recycled guilt trips or their last-ditch excuses. They burned that bridge with a torch and then blamed me for the smoke. Eric sent them the civil complaint. It detailed everything. No exaggeration, no fluff, just facts. The number we were going for wasn't small either. I was done letting them treat me like an afterthought while pouring everything into Chase, like he was the future of humanity. I found out from a friend of the family that my parents were freaking out behind closed doors. Apparently, they didn't think I'd actually go through with it. They thought I'd cool off, let it slide. Maybe come around after a few months like I always used to. Not this time. When you rob your own kid, lie about it, forge their name, and then play victim when they lawyer up. That's not a family problem. That's a legal problem. And I made sure it stayed that way. The criminal case was moving along too. The DA was prepping charges for forgery and grand theft. My mom had apparently broken down during questioning, tried to spin it as a desperate decision made during an emotional time. The investigator wasn't buying it. They had the fake signature, the texts, the emails, even Chase's "I didn't think they'd actually go through with it" message. It was all there. Their own digital trail was basically a confession. I didn't attend the arraignment, but Mason texted me after. They pled not guilty, but the judge wasn't amused. Of course they did. That tracks. Still pretending like this was all a misunderstanding. Like they just accidentally tripped and fell into fraud. Meanwhile, Chase showed up at my apartment. Unannounced. I was working from home and looked up to see him at my window like some knockoff horror movie villain. I didn't even open the door. Just cracked it and asked what he wanted. "I wanted to talk like brothers," he said. I leaned against the doorframe. You're 2 months late for that, Chase. He sighed, real dramatic. I just think you're blowing this way out of proportion, man. You're making it worse for everyone. I raised an eyebrow. Everyone? You mean mom and dad? The same people who forged my name and sold my car so you could go vibe in the woods for 4 days? It helped me, Darren, he said, like that was supposed to make it okay. I was going through a lot. I tilted my head. Oh yeah? If it helped, then why'd you bail halfway through? He stuttered for a second. It wasn't what I expected, all right? The environment was kind of overwhelming. So goat yoga and a gluten-free buffet was too much for you. But theft and forgery are fine? I stared at him like he was joking, but nope, dead serious. Look, I didn't know they were gonna sell it. I thought maybe they'd ask you first or something. I folded my arms. You knew. You took the keys, didn't you? Drove it there, didn't you? And when it never came back, you didn't think to shoot me a single message? I didn't want to be in the middle, he mumbled. You were the middle, Chase, I snapped. The whole thing was about you. You got the benefit. You got the trip. You got the Mustang. And all I got was screwed. He stood there in silence. You can go now, I said, shutting the door. A few days later, I got a notice from Eric that they'd tried to file a countersuit, claiming emotional damages from being slandered during the criminal process. It got tossed so fast, the clerk probably didn't even blink. You try to sue someone while being criminally charged for stealing their stuff? Good luck with that. By the time the civil suit reached settlement talks, they were the ones scrambling. Their lawyer reached out and offered to settle. I told Eric to play hardball. I didn't want a weak apology and a check with tears on it. I wanted every cent, every penalty, and every ounce of accountability they'd dodged for years. We didn't settle. We won. The court ordered them to pay full damages plus legal costs. The ruling stated in black and white that they knowingly committed fraud against their adult son, and that the sale was a deliberate and illegal act. They were officially labeled what they always had been: entitled, manipulative, and dangerous with power. I moved a few weeks after that. New place, quiet neighborhood, no one within 5 miles who knew the history. No drive-bys, no surprise visitors, no cousins trying to patch things up. Just peace. I don't know what Chase is doing now. Don't care. Last I heard, he was back at home, unemployed again, probably waiting for someone else to fix his life. My parents? Still stuck in their bubble of self-pity. They're down a car, thousands of dollars, their reputation in the community, and, oh yeah, the son who used to be the reliable one. They can keep Chase. They chose him over me every time. Every family event, every holiday, every lie they let him get away with while I was told to be the bigger person. Well, I was. Now I'm just the one who got away. You mess with people's stuff, expect them to fight back. I lost a car. They lost their son.